Meals Program was designed to do to alleviate summer hunger. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the resources and materials that Share Our Strength has come up with in order to help you in district offices and others promote the Summer Meals Program. Then we'll have Grace talk to us a little bit about how we can have your offices engage with Summer Meals sites throughout your district and the advantages that you have to your bosses, but also to the programs and constituents in your communities. And finally, we'll just briefly touch on some of the policy conversation around the Summer Meals Program that's happening right now in Washington, D.C. So Summer Hunger and the Summer Meals Program. Many of you may know, but just for the sake of making the point clear, you know, we have a serious issue with hunger in our country and children. So that's 1 out of 5 kids in America experience hunger. That's about 16 million kids across the country. And we know that this is an issue that affects kids in all types of communities, rural, suburban, urban, all different types of families are affected by hunger. And one of the biggest tools that we have that Share Our Strength especially focuses on to help you know, mediate that hunger with kids is to connect kids to the school nutrition programs. So nationally, about 22 million kids take advantage of the free or reduced price school lunch program in their schools throughout the academic year. There's the school breakfast program is another federal program that was created, and about 12 million kids participate and make sure that they can get a breakfast as part of their school day. Unfortunately, though, we know that only about 4 million children receive summer meals who otherwise would be receiving a school lunch throughout the academic year. So there's a significant drop-off in the number of children who would be receiving school meals and who are not receiving meals during the summertime. And it's what we've kind of called the summer hunger gap. So, you know, when kids are going hungry in the summertime, this is not just something that they acutely experience. We know that the summer poses challenges and summer hunger poses challenges for the entire family and household. What we've seen at Share Our Strength and what we've researched is that about 43% of low-income families have said to us that it's harder for them to make ends meet during the summertime. And families are often spending about $300 additionally each month on groceries during the summertime. So the school meals that are offered during the academic year, the school breakfast and lunch and sometimes the after-school snack, those are meals that are really helping families stretch their grocery store budgets during the school year. And in the summer when those meals are absent, families are oftentimes, you know, their financial situations haven't necessarily changed, and so they're having to come up with the resources to provide food for the family for meals that would otherwise be covered in school time. And so this is money, you know, that's most likely going to be driven from other household expenses such as bills or medication, other things that are also critical for children throughout the summertime. So what was done to kind of help address the summer hunger crisis was about 40 years ago, the Summer Food Service Program was written into the Child Nutrition Reauthorization process in the program there. And this is a law that really was meant to help fill that gap for when school is out of session and school meals are not available. And the program helps to serve kids who are under age 18 and under and in low-income communities. So you're probably familiar with individual children needing to be verified for the school meals programs at the schools. The summer meals program is a little different in that communities are actually considered eligible, and it's a little bit different in how that eligibility is structured. The program is administered by the USDA and it's passed down through state agencies. Many times it's going to be a State Department of Education, or it could also be a State Department of Agriculture, depending on your state. And it's served through local organizations in the community. So typically what happens is that organizations become registered with the state agency as sponsors of summer meals, and then they sign up or create summer meals sites. And oftentimes those sites are located throughout the community. They can be in churches, they can be in community centers, schools, parks, Increasingly, we're seeing really innovative places for summer meal sites to be located, such as libraries. And you've probably heard that some summer meal sites are actually run through mobile meals. So a truck will come through communities and stop at various locations, serving as kind of a roving site, if you will, and getting to kids where they are in their communities. It's a pretty innovative model. So the reason we're having this webinar today is because we know that with your offices, you all have a really great opportunity to make a big difference in that number of kids who are served by the program. You know, one of the biggest things that's so important about how we get that number from 4 million to maybe 5 million and so on is really, is a big part of it is promotion and engagement and acknowledging and getting folks to know that the program exists in your districts and in communities. So 2 ways in particular that you can make a big difference. By having your office promote the program to your constituents, raising awareness in the media, as well as visiting summer meal sites. So summer meal site visits are a great way to get a great exposure for the program and the community partners operating those programs, as well as educate your office about some of the issues that are going on in your particular district. Share Strength, and I'll say this throughout the process, this entire webinar, Share Strength is ready and willing to help you identify a site that works for you. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So some of the things that Share Our Strength has done, we have some great resources and materials that you can use in your district to help promote the summer meals program. So like I mentioned, you know, your offices and your boss has the opportunity to leverage the media and draw attention to the summer meals program. So there's really fantastic ways that you can hold conference calls potentially. You can invite the media to kickoff events, maybe a PSA or an op-ed. 2 of my favorite examples are we have a great advocate for the summer meals program in the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois. And she has gone out and recorded PSAs promoting engagement and finding locations for summer meal sites throughout the state. She's recorded those PSAs both in English and in Spanish. So she has been able to help use her office to really gain the attention of folks who might need the program. Another great example of a way that you can use the media here, we have Congressman McGovern in Massachusetts hosts a summer meals site tour every single summer and invites the media to join him as he visits various different summer meal sites throughout his congressional district and has been able to get great press coverage of these sites and the importance of the summer meals program in that particular district, especially in a district that's a pretty diverse set of communities. I think another thing that you're probably very familiar with is how you can use your physical office or the social media in your office to help promote the summer meals program. Many of you have constituents who will walk through your doors this summer and they might be looking for assistance of various different types. But by having perhaps flyers available, by having handouts, having a poster in the window, by putting information up on Twitter and Facebook for your constituents to see and learn from. These are great ways that you can help to share the news that summer meals are available for your constituents. So these are some examples of some of the publications that have been used. And again, we have great, I'm going to share a link with you in a second, but there's some great opportunities and things that we have created to help you with that promotion. So this link, which again will be sent out to you in the slide deck after this webinar, but this link is a great way to get some outreach materials that are really customizable and available for your state and your district. We encourage, this is a great one because it encourages how to individually locate summer meal sites for your particular constituents. The other really exciting opportunity is to promote, as you saw on those flyers, the summer meals text line. So for summer meal sites, a nationwide text line has been set up, and you can just text 877-877, and you can either text food or the word comida. And what will happen is, as you see on their slide, the constituent will be able to find out the site that's closest to them based upon their zip code and their address. which is a really great way. And like I said, we have it in Spanish and in English, so constituents are able to identify the site nearest them on the go. And this is something I have been able to see promoted even on buses here in Washington, D.C. I think one of the other important resources is through USDA. So USDA's Summer Meals, Summer Food Rocks website actually has a lot of information and resources for you and your district on how to promote the program and how to connect your constituents. But if you're curious about where the Summer Meal sites are in your particular district, I encourage you to go to this website and check out their interactive map. What I will say is that because it's still kind of early in the summer, many summer meal sites actually haven't quite kicked off yet. We know that schools are still in session across the country for many, many places. So if you don't see your community included on the map yet, please check back over the next couple of weeks. That information gets updated on a rolling basis as state agencies report the information to the USDA. Finally, if you just want to learn a little bit more about the Summer Meals program, about how it's impacting your state, what actual summer hunger looks like in your community, I encourage you to visit nokidhungry.org/summer and nokidhungry.org/policy. And these are really specific websites that are all directed and about summer meals right now. It's a great way to learn a little bit more about the policy, which we'll talk about later. But as you can see, all of these links, or these states that are linked, will give you a sheet that particularly outlines the summer meals participation for your state, where areas of eligibility are and where they're not, as well as kind of a general idea of where some of the summer meal sites are located. In addition, we have one-pagers that also kind of more broadly describe what the community partnerships are of Share Our Strength and how our community partners are working to end childhood hunger in your state. So lots of resources there, lots of opportunities to learn more and to find out about your state in particular. And now I'm going to turn this over to Grace from THI. She's going to talk to you a little bit more about what those summer meal site visits look like and how your office can participate in one of those sites this summer.
Great. Thank you, Bernadette. My name is Grace Norman. I'm the No Kid Hungry campaign manager for the Texas Hunger Initiative at Baylor University. We have 12 field offices across the state of Texas that work to engage officials at the local, state, and federal levels, particularly around child nutrition programs, with increasing access and awareness to summer meals, after-school meals, and school breakfast. So today I am going to talk a little bit about what benefits exist when visiting a summer meal site and engaging with constituents at that level, both benefits for the members when they're home or for you all, district staff, but as well as for families and other organizations in those local communities. So as you can see on this slide, we've outlined 4 of those benefits, or really what can come from conducting a site visit. And I see benefits having 2 major benefits. One is for the elected officials themselves. Conducting site visits can provide education about the programs themselves, as well as a fuller context for how these programs operate and the broader impact programs have on the community at large, as well as parents and their children and the family units as a whole. It also, conducting site visits, have benefits for community organizations, validating their efforts to come together as a community to address unique needs that they have, summer hunger being one of them, as well as making those organizations feel valued. You can see that, again, you can hear the challenges of these programs as well as the impact that they have in their local communities. And then this is a great opportunity to raise awareness for these programs for constituents through media outreach. Site visits can be just that, a site visit in and of themselves, or we're in Texas and summer kicked off midweek last week for many of our school districts. And so we launched these kickoff events, as Bernadette has already mentioned. And so great media outreach comes from those events, again, to raise awareness for the programs. And so this is an opportunity for whether it's photo opportunities with families and community organizations, or media engagement for representatives. Bernadette, next slide, please. Here I've pulled pictures from 3 specific events that we have had in the past as well. One is just as recently as this last Monday. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what our field staff did to pull these events together. The top 2 pictures took place in with our Dallas office. And so the top left photograph is actually a district director speaking at a kickoff event as a portion of the program for Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson in Dallas. And then the top right is Congressman Mark Vesey talking with media about what he saw and experienced at a meal site. The bottom photo I'll talk a little bit about in a bit more depth because this event just happened on Monday. We kicked off summer meals in Nacogdoches, Texas. And this is a true illustration of the convening of elected officials at the local, state, and federal levels. We had the city mayor in attendance and spoke in the program, as well as the county judge. One of the pastors, Pastor Shaw, and his wife pastor the church where the summer meal site took place, as well as they serve as the sponsors through a nonprofit they run. And then we also had a pastor of another local church who provided the blessing over the meal, and then our staff was on hand. We also had a regional administrator with USDA Food and Nutrition Service on hand to really kick off the program, and these community leaders provided a ribbon cutting as well as a short program to community organizations and vendors in the room while the children and families were in attendance before mealtime was served. Our staff reached out to Congressman Gomert's office and completed his event form to invite him to this event to speak and talk through just the importance of providing for the community through these organizations and the services they provide, but making sure that no child in this community and his district goes hungry, really talking through just the benefits that come from this pastor and his wife opening up their organization to provide meals to children in need. We had this short program, and then we're able to engage with elected officials and the community vendors, as well as kids and families themselves. And so we were able to, again, provide the who, what, when, and where, but then the greater impact that these programs had on families. Our staff later in the afternoon visited with several community organizations and families later that night, and each stop we made that afternoon and that evening, the organizations we visited with talked about how honored they were to have had Congressman Gomert as well as the other elected officials and agency representatives in attendance, and how much that even just validated the work they were doing and inspired them to continue to work and engage with other organizations as well as other elected officials across their region to ensure that their message got out, whether their message was one of summer literacy or early childhood education through Head Start. They were all on hand at this rallying point for organizations that serve kids over the summer that this kickoff event served as, and then we're able to move from there to see how their programs really intertwine to continue to uplift children and families throughout the summer. And so it was great to have heard the impact that, again, these organizations as well as individual families felt from having folks in attendance, as well as just the impact that these programs have on their families throughout the summer. Next slide, please. Here you can see just the scope of the level of need across the state of Texas, as well as the level of current access to summer meal sites. So each of these black dots on the map that No Kid Hungry and Share Our Strength have created represent a meal site that served in a previous summer. And meal sites, while they all follow guidelines and the policy, all operate a little differently to really address the unique needs of their communities. And so meal sites, while there can be hundreds in one particular community, you can see that they're highly populated in metro areas and other densely populated areas. While they are each a summer meal site, they all operate a little differently and can have churches that have adopted a school to work with them, or local organizations that kind of adopt a week to provide enrichment activities to kids, or other organizations that are coming together to strengthen public-private partnerships in their communities. And so in Texas, we have a great resource in these summer meal sites, but then I want to draw your attention to the orange counties. These are counties with high levels of need, as Bernadette mentioned. This program is based on community eligibility, and so you can see almost the discrepancy of the orange shaded areas, those with a great abundance of sites, and those with just a few, if any, summer meal sites over the summer. And we really see this access issue playing out primarily in rural areas. And so this is where our staff are working to continue to identify sponsors and sites to make sure that children have access to this program throughout the summer months. With that, I'll be available for questions at the end of the webinar, and I'll hand it back over to Bernadette.
Thank you so much, Grace. So I think that's a perfect segue to our next kind of section, which really just touches a little bit on the policy side of all that and kind of gets to the reason behind a lot of what that map describes. And again, if you wanted to see what that map looks like for your state, feel free to go to nokidhungry.org/policy and access that map there. But really one of the biggest things, so Grace mentioned some of the barriers to the program, and this is why having your office participate can be so important, is to help overcome some of these barriers. But these are some of the more systemic ones as well that are kind of built into how the law is administered. So, you know, as Grace alluded to, meals can just be unavailable in many communities. So about a third of all of the low-income kids in the country live outside of areas that are eligible to have summer meal sites. So if you're looking at that map from the previous slide, it's the areas in gray. So it's a kid who might live, there's just not enough kids who are low income in their particular community. We see this a lot in suburban and rural communities where there's just not as much concentration of where kids are living. And so truly just sheer where kids live and means that they might miss out on the summer meals program. Many sites, you know, many kids and families have issues getting to summer meal sites. You know, we've seen a lot about how summertime is not necessarily a time of fun and joy for many families because it's tough to try to get kids to places where they can get enrichment, where they can access the summer meals that they need. So with communities not having reliable public transportation options, with no school buses running, many times sites just are not accessible. We've heard a story, and we hear stories every year of kids doing remarkable things to try to get to summer meal sites. One of my more poignant ones is a little boy of 5 years old who used to bicycle several miles each way in order to get to his summer meal site on a kind of a back road in his community. So, you know, a 5-year-old having to go great distances just to try to get to that summer meal site. Summer weather may also be a huge barrier to getting kids into those summer meal sites. So, you know, it's great that so many of these programs and sites are outside where kids can play, they can have camp or enrichment. Unfortunately, in many communities across the country, there may be hurricanes during the summer or extreme heat. Tornadoes, I know, are a big problem in a particular regions in the country. And unfortunately, there is a thing called the congregate feeding requirement that's a component of this program, which requires kids to come to the site and eat their meal at the site. It kind of gets to some of the other issues that in the previous points I just made. When you have the congregate feeding requirement, the programs do not get reimbursed unless children consume their meal collectively at that site. So if a program knows or unexpectedly a tornado or a thunderstorm came through the community, that site may not have the kids needed to get reimbursed for the meal, so they may lose money. But even more upsetting, those children are not able to just get their meal and take it home to someplace that's safe for them to be. Public safety can be also another thing. It's not on here, but it's kind of in the same vein where when kids are public safety issues, they oftentimes may be violence in their communities or just roadblocks that are getting them there, physical ones, having to come across a highway to get to a particular site. And then finally, I think one of the big things that we see about a barrier is the bureaucracy here. So we have 2 programs that operate by many of the same kinds of operators, the after-school meals program and the summer meals program, for example. And unfortunately, these programs, while they're serving the same kids and oftentimes serving them nearly identical meals, many programs decide not to operate both because they have to go through 2 separate sets of applications and reporting requirements to operate those programs. And with many of these organizations, they're small or faith-based organizations or just, the requirements of those 2 different programs are burdensome, and they choose to only operate one instead of the other, or the other, and not both at the same time. So there's a lot of administrative and physical barriers keeping kids from meals beyond just the awareness and public information sharing that we talked about so far. So I think here at Share Our Strength, we've been having a lot of good conversations, and you've probably been hearing a bit about the child nutrition reauthorization process that's currently ongoing. It's been going on for the last year or so. The conversations have been happening here in Washington, D.C. And just a little refresher, the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Bill is the bill that is what puts this program into, it authorizes this program as well as the school lunch program and breakfast program. And it's reauthorized every 5 years. So it's since the summer meals program is mandatory and since CNR actually expired last fall, it's fortunately running, but still operating. But at the same time, we're still having the conversations about what policies are best to include to improve access to these programs. And so we've kind of been talking to Senate and House members throughout the past 1.5 years about some of the ideas that are here on this slide. So things that can help to mitigate those barriers I just mentioned. So some of them include continuing to support and protect congregate sites. These are obviously the gold standard, and ideally we would love every kid to be able to access great enrichment, great play, and have a meal during the summertime. But when kids are not able to get that experience, we want states and communities to have more options to implement efficient delivery programs, so reaching kids where the kids are in hard-to-reach areas or hard-to-reach communities. Also, there's been great demonstration projects done by USDA showing the effectiveness of extending a grocery credit to families during the summer months to help meet the need of families who can't access sites. Those $300 that we mentioned earlier, this helps to help mitigate that additional expense. An additional recommendation that we've talked a lot to Congress about is how we can cut through the red tape there and make sure that the meal programs are combined into one seamless option for programs to operate. So they don't have to choose, and they really only have to go through one part of the process in order to provide meals in the site. So just some context too. So both the Senate and the House have produced marker bills, or they have marked up their version of the bill, and we can say, which is great, that a lot of these concepts are included in both versions. They both look a little bit different, and we continue to have conversations with Congress about that, but this is where we are in the process, is that there have been some movement here in Washington, D.C., and so we can definitely talk more about that if you have additional questions. So now we're at that question part of the afternoon, and we've been thankful for your attention so far. So feel free to chat in your questions, and we will address them in order and move from there. All right, I have a question from someone about their summer meal site. So the question was, my state summer meal sites aren't on USDA's website yet. How do I find them and schedule my boss for a visit? This is where your community members or your community partners will be a great resource for you. We have great information here also at Share a Strength through our own partners. So what I would encourage you to do is to contact me. My contact information is at the end of the slide, and I can get you hopefully connected to someone in your community to address that particular question, and we can help you find that. Here's my contact information right there. Great. Another question about visits. This is a good one. Our schedule in the district's pretty busy this summer. Is there a good time, or when should we try to schedule this kind of a visit? And so I would advise, like Grace mentioned, kickoffs have started and summer programs have started. However, you should know that that many summer meals sites, they start to close by early August. And so you really want to try to aim for late July, would be kind of the latest that you would want to try to schedule this kind of a visit. And also important to note is that you'd want to check in with the site that you want to visit, because many offer breakfast and lunch or one or the other. They may not offer both meals. So you definitely want to just make sure that you can get in there at a time where the kids are going to be consuming their meal. Sorry, I'm just reading some questions. So the question was, can your organization help our office coordinate attendees for visits to a feeding site? Absolutely. We definitely are willing to coordinate with you, connect you to great programs, and make sure that the right people in the room for your summer feeding site. So I think we definitely have PR team here and other types of opportunities that we can help you. So feel free to contact me there, and we will get you squared away. And I have a question here, and I actually had my colleague join me, so I'm gonna tip this to my colleague. The question was, do you have any issues with the reauthorization bill in its current form? So I'm gonna let Lucy step in, because I know she actually just got back from Capitol Hill.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucy Melcher. I'm the Director of Advocacy here at Share a Strength and work closely with Bernadette, so I apologize for missing the first part of the webinar. So the question was about the reauthorization, which I'm sure many of you and your bosses have seen move forward. So the bill that Bernadette referenced in the Senate, we were really pleased with, and we really believe that their committee-passed bill includes really, really strong improvements to the summer meals program, and we are very supportive of it. The bill that moved forward in the House Committee on Education and the Workforce included some sort of scaled back modest improvements, so we would like to see those go further. I will just say Share a Strength does have a pretty strong opposition, very strong opposition to the pilot block grant proposal that was also included in that bill. We would not like to see that piece move forward at all. But we do still believe that Congress should reauthorize this bill, and would like as strong improvements as possible to the summer meals program to move forward.
Great, and I should clarify too, in case you're interested, the committees of jurisdiction there will be the Senate Agriculture Committee and the House Education and the Workforce Committee. Thank you, Lucy, for that insight. I think a good question came in was, where can we direct people who want to qualify to provide a site? And so I think there's definitely some process there. So what I would ask you to do is connect them to our team here at Share Our Strengths. You can use my email address again, and we are able to help them connect to their state agency, who can either identify the sponsors in your state, in your district, or we can maybe see if there's neighboring sites that we can direct kids to if it's something that's close by in the vicinity. So definitely give us some information, and we've got a great expert here who will be able to identify what the best process is for your particular state. There's another question about if an office is using social media to promote summer meal sites in our state, how frequently do you recommend posting the info? And that's a really good question. I think one of the biggest things that we've learned from summer meals programming is that there's oftentimes a big drop-off in the middle of the summer. So while it's important to draw a lot of attention at the beginning of the summer to the where the sites are and how they're getting located, it's really important to reiterate this around right after the 4th of July holidays and during the middle of the summer, because that's where we see the biggest drop-off of kids or families maybe forgetting about the program or just not getting outside. It's hotter, and it's a lot of times more trouble sometimes for kids to get to programs at that time of the year. So I would recommend at that point in time. There's some questions here, and there's a couple of requests for some op-eds or some additional information about the positions of Share Our Strengths on these programs. So we can definitely include, there's been a bunch of publications that Share Our Strengths has produced, as well as statements related to both the Senate and the House marker bills, or the House bill rather. So we are happy to include those statements when we share the information of the webinar and the slides. So one of the questions, and this is a great one about the process, so where does the food source, or how does the community, how does this vary amongst communities? And there is a suggestion about how this gets combined with summer reading programs in schools, and how you can use, how we can grow transportation options as well. And I think all of these types of questions, so I will just answer one part of that, and I might kick that other part to another colleague of mine in the room. But I think one of the biggest things that we find is here at Share Our Strengths, we are constantly trying to innovate and work with our partners around the country to provide grants to help them meet their needs for technical assistance or for other program needs in their communities. So that might be some of the things such as coolers, or even as simple as tables and chairs and umbrellas for kids to sit under so they have shade while they eat their meals. So this is where the public-private partnerships are really critical in administering summer meals programs, because frankly the summer meals reimbursements that the federal government provides don't cover the full cost of the programs. And one of the great things we have seen with your question related to summer reading is we have seen really great partnerships and growth in the amount of summer meal sites at libraries, and many programs such as Share Strength connects kids and summer meal sites to things like First Book or other types of opportunities for getting books in the hands of kids for during the summertime. So hopefully that answers your question there. We have maybe a minute or two more for questions if folks have them. So we'll give you guys a minute or two to type another question in there. All right. I think that might be it. So again, thank you everyone for participating today. We are so grateful that you were interested in learning more about the Summer Meals program. Again, please do not hesitate to contact me if you are still looking for additional information or ways to connect with Summer Meals sites this summer. We are happy to help you here at Share Our Strengths, connect you to the partners in your community. Thank you again, and have a great afternoon.